If you love YA dystopia or it's a genre that you want to get into, then this video is for you. Today I'm going to be sharing 12 of my favourite books in the YA dystopian genre. Now I say 12, but there's actually going to be a lot more books in this video, as the majority of these books are actually part of series. So if you find a book that you really love, then there's plenty more waiting for you. And for you Hunger Games fans, this is the perfect time for you to get back into YA dystopia, as there is an adaptation of the latest book in the franchise, Sunrise on the Reaping, coming out soon. So there's something about YA dystopia and the dystopian genre in general that I absolutely love. And it does feel a little bit weird to say that I love books about futures which seem quite bleak. There are harsh environments, there's oppression, there's rebellions, but there is just something that keeps me going back to YA dystopia, and it is one of my favourite genres. And the series that started my love of YA dystopian fiction is one that I could not make a YA dystopia recommendation video without. And this is, of course, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So The Hunger Games is set in Pan Am, which is a post-apocalyptic North America. Pan Am is made up of the capital and originally 13 districts, but an early rebellion in the districts led to the destruction of District 13 and also introduced something called the Hunger Games. So 12 districts remain after this rebellion, and the capital have enforced annual televised Hunger Games. So each year children are forced to compete in these deadly games, and it is a fight to the death. So there can only be one victor from these 24 children. We follow our main protagonist, Katniss Everdeen, who lives in District 12. And in the annual reaping ceremony, where names are picked from a lottery system, Katniss Everdeen volunteers as a tribute for her sister Prim, and volunteers to take her place and be part of the Hunger Games. And she does end up becoming the reluctant face of a rebellion. I think what I love the most about the Hunger Games is really Suzanne Collins' world building. It's phenomenal, it's epic, and I really loved finding out more about Pan Am. And also I really do love the characters. They all have such in-depth backstories, and particularly I love Katniss Everdeen. So she is very different to the kind of heroine that you've read about in other books. She is not the kind of character that you would think would be the face of a revolution. And yeah, I just find her very relatable, and I love her so much that I even named my cat Katniss. So this series does also cover topics such as survival and ethics of warfare and how media can manipulate society. And I believe that Suzanne Collins got the idea for this story while she was flicking between TV shows, and she saw a lot of footage of war on the news, and then on other channels she was seeing these reality TV competitions, and she's kind of really merged the two. And it also discusses how society has got to the point where we can kind of be switching between different channels, and on one channel there's horrible atrocities going on, but then we can just switch straight into reality television entertainment. So I think this is quite an important novel for us as a society as well, and is still very relevant today. So The Hunger Games is part of a series. So we have the original trilogy, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and then Mockingjay. And then there's also a couple of books which have come later on. So first we had The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and this follows President Snow, who is in charge of the capital, and it follows him in earlier life and shows how he kind of got to the point of ruling Pan Am. And then the latest book in the series is Sunrise on the Reaping, and this follows the story of Hamish Abernathy, who is one of the victors from District 12. And once you become a victor, you are always kind of connected to the Hunger Games, as they will bring you back in future years to train the new tributes. So The Hunger Games is actually one of my favourite series of all times, and I also love the movies as well. So my next recommendation is Divergent by Veronica Roth. So this is set in a futuristic Chicago, and society is divided into different factions. So there's 5 factions in total: Abnegation, Amity, Candor, Dauntless and Erudite. And you are sorted into factions based on values. So this story focuses on the character of Beatrice Pryor, and she is in the faction of Abnegation. And when you turn 16 in this world, you take part in various tests to find out which faction most suits you and your values, and you can end up potentially changing your faction based on these tests. So during these tests, Beatrice finds out that she's divergent, which means that she actually is not one specific faction. And divergents are very dangerous to society, so they have to hide their true identity. So Beatrice ends up leaving Abnegation, leaving her family behind, and becoming part of Dauntless. But there are some very tough trials that she must face for her initiation into this faction. And she also ends up uncovering a conspiracy which threatens everybody. So I really enjoyed this one. This is part of a trilogy. So we have Divergent, Insurgent, and then Allegiant. And there is also a short story collection which focuses on the character of Four, who becomes Beatrice's love interest in the series. So I really enjoyed this one. I love Veronica Roth's writing, and I thought the idea of the factions was really interesting, as it looks at what society would be like if like-minded people were in one community together. And it does really explore themes of found families. So in a lot of cases, people are leaving their family behind to join the faction which they identify with the most. So taking on a new family. And I did love all of the twists and turns in this book and all of the things that get uncovered. And yeah, I thought this was quite fast paced, quite action filled, and yeah, really enjoyed it. This was also turned into a film franchise, but unfortunately it wasn't as successful as the Hunger Games, for example. So sadly we didn't get the last installment of the film, which is a shame, as I would have liked to have seen it completed. So the next book I have to recommend is The Maze Runner by James Dashner, and this again is a series. So this follows the character of Thomas, and he wakes up in a place called the Glade with no memory, surrounded by a group of boys trapped in this ever-shifting maze. So each month a new boy arrives in the Glade, which is the area just outside of the maze, and they never arrive with any memory. They only can remember their first name, so they don't remember anything about who they are and their past. And then there is the maze, which is roamed by deadly grievers, and some of the boys become runners. So they enter the maze to kind of discover more about it. So Thomas does end up becoming a runner, and he's determined to find a way out of the maze and uncover its secrets. Then one day in the Glade, instead of a boy, a girl arrives again with no memory of who she is, only her first name. But she and Thomas end up becoming close and really wanting to push to leave the Glade and go through the maze and uncover all of the secrets of the maze and the reasons why they're there and why the maze is there. And this was quite an interesting story. I did like the memory loss elements. So we kind of explore the world through Thomas's eyes, so as he wakes up, so we have no kind of prior knowledge of this world. So I loved how we were exploring the world along with Thomas. Then there were also a couple of sequels to this series, which I actually have not read yet, but I've heard great things. So there's The Scorch Trials, The Death Cure, and then there was also a prequel series. And there were 2 books in that series, so The Kill Order and The Fever Code. So a lot of this world is built around the fact that there is some kind of virus outbreak. So I would love to continue those and finish the series, but this was also turned into a film series, which I did quite enjoy as well. Then the next recommendation is The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. And this again is set in a near future world. But in this world, a disease has killed nearly 98% of American children. And any surviving children develop extraordinary powers, which the adults become very scared of. So the remaining children end up imprisoned by the government, and they are sorted into different colours based on their different powers. So greens have very high level intelligence, blues have powers of telekinesis, yellows have electricity, red has fire, and oranges, which are the most dangerous out of all the children, have mind control, and they're the ones that the government and all the adults are most afraid of. So we follow Ruby, who is 16 years old, and like all of the other children, her parents became afraid of her and she had to leave them to be imprisoned by the government. So this is a theme that runs right through this book, is how all of these children end up abandoned by their parents because their parents become scared of them. And there basically becomes a world where only children who have these powers are left. So Ruby ends up escaping the government institution that she's placed in along with another group of teens. And they have heard of a safe haven called East River where children can go and not be imprisoned and persecuted for their powers. This again is part of a series and I have only just read the first book, but based on what I read, I'm really interested to pick up the rest of the series at some point. So we have Never Fade, In the Afterlight, and The Darkest Legacy, which is a companion novel. So I did really enjoy this book. I thought that the concept was quite intriguing and I loved how these powers were categorized into different colors. I thought that was quite good. And I also did really like Ruby as a character. This has also been turned into a film. Unfortunately, the first film didn't do so well, so they haven't made any of the sequels, which is a shame. But yeah, I would also recommend checking that film out as well. My next recommendation is Matched by Ali Condi, and this is set in a society where everything is controlled for you. So where you live, where you work, and also who you love and who you end up being paired with. So there is a matching ceremony and we follow our main character Cassia, who ends up being matched with her best friend Xander. But during the matching ceremony, there is a small glitch and another face appears to her before Xander's, and that's of Kai Markham. So then she begins questioning the system and starting a quiet rebellion, one choice at a time. And I did really enjoy this world as well, and I thought it was interesting to incorporate kind of reality TV dating games into this dystopic world, so I really like the concept. And it was a really good early dystopia, and this one is also part of a trilogy, so Matched is the first book, Crossed is the second book, and Reached is the third in the trilogy. So next up is Wither by Lauren DeStefano, and this is a earlier dystopia, and I thought this one was actually a really good series. So this is part of the Chemical Garden series. So we have Wither as the first book, Fever as the second, and Sever as the third instalment. And this is set in a world where women die at age 20 and men die at age 25 due to some genetic experiment, and the government are really trying hard to find a cure for this, but they can't. So this has a real impact on the future of humanity, as no one is living past the age of 20 if you're a woman and 25 if you're a man. So things are getting quite worrying. So in this world, women are kidnapped and forced to live as part of a polyamorous marriage to try and produce as many children as possible to find a way to cure this genetic disorder. So we follow our main character Ryan, and she is given as a sister wife to a wealthy young man. So she is forced to navigate and survive this world, also knowing that she only has a limited amount of time to live. So this was a very interesting concept for a series, and I guess we could also group this in kind of feminist dystopia, which I really enjoy. So yeah, I do think that this is quite an underrated series. I think it was quite popular when it was published, but I haven't heard that much about it recently, and I think it is a very good YA dystopia. So next up I have Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and this is part of the Lunar Chronicles. So I feel that this could be described as dystopia, but also it is a little bit sci-fi and a little bit fairy tale retelling. So this is a futuristic retelling of Cinderella, and it's set in New Beijing, in a world where humans and androids coexist, and there is a deadly plague which is spreading through the world. So we follow Cinder, who is a cyborg mechanic, and she's very much treated like a second-class citizen. She has a mysterious past and is hated by her stepmother, but one day she ends up meeting Prince Kai, and she finds herself at the centre of an intergalactic struggle and forbidden attraction. and she must uncover secrets about her past to protect her world's future. And she ends up discovering a connection to the Lunar Queen, Lavanna, who can manipulate minds. And while this is a little bit more sci-fi, it does still contain dystopic elements, so I think this is a great one to read. I also really loved the retelling of fairy tales, so I think throughout the rest of the series, I think there's other fairy tale characters. So I have only read Cinder, so I'm not sure about the other books, and this is quite a popular YA series. So the rest of the books are all set in the same universe, and they follow, I think, different characters. So we have various other fairy tale retellings. So we have Scarlet, which is Little Red Riding Hood. Then we have Cress, which is Rapunzel, and Winter, which is Snow White. And then there are also a couple of stories which I don't think follow the main arc, but they are set in this world. So we have Stars Above and then Fairest. So I am looking forward to continuing my journey with the Lunar Chronicles. My next recommendation is also one which I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about. It was an early 2000s novel, and it's called The Wind on Fire Trilogy, and the first book is The Wind Singer, and this is by William Nicholson. So this is set in the city of Amaranth, and society is obsessed with exams and ranking, and the worth of families is measured by their children's academic performance. So we follow the characters of Kestrel and her brother Bowman, and they are very much trying to defy society's expectations and fight against the city's rigid system. And they set out to destroy something called the Singing Key, which has kept the city under a generational curse. So this one is great if you're looking for something a little bit less hyped than some of the other ones on this list, and yeah, something a little bit different. And I did really like the world building in this, and I thought it was an interesting concept to have everything determined by your children's academic performance. And I think it was really kind of discovering what would happen if we push our children too far, and then society is now completely based on academics. My next recommendation is Hal Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. And this did really explore some very interesting themes. So it's set in a post-apocalyptic world where a fundamentalist cult has triggered a biological apocalypse. And this does have trans representation in it. So Benji, our main character, is a trans boy, and he is infected with a bioweapon that transforms him in strange ways. He ends up rescued by a group of teens from the LGBTQ+ centre, and he meets Nick, who is gorgeous and autistic, and he also knows Benji's darkest secret, that the cult's bioweapon is actually turning him into something so deadly that he could wipe out humanity. So this really kind of follows Benji's transition journey. So not only his gender transition, but also the fact that he is transitioning into a monster from this deadly weapon. And it also kind of follows the idea of cults and extremists and their pursuit of hate for anyone who is different to them and holds different beliefs to them. So I thought this was a really interesting spin on the dystopia. And if you are looking for something with trans and LGBTQ+ representation in the dystopic genre, then this one is great. Then next I have Wilder Girls by Rory Power, and this follows the character of Hetty and her friends, and they are quarantined at Raxter School after the outbreak of some virus called the Tox, and they discover that the Tox is changing their bodies, and Hetty ends up venturing beyond the quarantine fence after her friend disappears, and she slowly uncovers more about the world and the government's involvement in the virus of the Tox. So this is very much a coming of age novel, and it follows these girls as they are coming to terms with the fact that no one cares about them, they've been left to fend for themselves, and also that their bodies are changing. And yeah, it's a survival story and a lot of body horror in this. This is also very much about the power of female friendships. So again, I would highly recommend this if you're looking for something a little bit different in the dystopic genre. Next, I have another series, and this again could kind of cross over with sci-fi. So this is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, and this is part of a trilogy. So book 2 is The Infinite Sea, and book 3 is The Last Star. So in this book, Earth has been attacked by aliens, by various different waves, each time wiping out more and more people. And this book is set in the 5th wave, where aliens are trying to eradicate humanity completely. And this follows Cassie, who has been separated from her brother, and she is determined to find him. And she ends up meeting Evan, who may be her only hope, but he is hiding a secret. So this really follows Cassie as she tries to stay alive, to try and be reunited with the only family that she has left. Everybody has been wiped out, and she just has to try and survive in this world where she can't trust anybody. And the aliens that have attacked the planet, they can now look like humans. So it's a very harsh world to live in, and you never know who is still actually human and who is pretending to be human. And I did really enjoy this world. Again, this one has been turned into a film. They have made the first one. I don't think they're going to make any of the sequels into a film. But I really like this world, and I like the blending of sci-fi with dystopia. I thought that was really good. And I really did like the character of Cassie and her determination to survive. So I would recommend this one if you're looking for something that is both dystopia and sci-fi as a YA series. So my next and final recommendation is a very similar series to the 5th wave. And this is also kind of merging dystopia with sci-fi. And this is Partials by Dan Wells. And I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about this one. And I actually did really enjoy this book, so I would recommend it if you are looking again for something that isn't so hyped. So this is part of a trilogy. So the 2nd book is Fragments and the 3rd book is Ruins. And this again is set in a post-apocalyptic world. There has been some kind of virus that has wiped out humanity. And there are also partials in this world who have been genetically engineered by the government. And they are synthetic humanoids, and they were built to help the US government fight the war against international enemies. And we follow the main character of Kira, who is a medical intern, and she kidnaps a partial to discover its physiology and see if she can find a cure for the disease that has almost wiped out humanity. And this was really a great series. It explored morality, survival, and the ethical dilemmas of experimenting to save humanity. So I would highly recommend it. So those are my 12 YA dystopian book recommendations. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a like if you have, and do subscribe to my channel for more of my content. Let me know if you've already read any of these books or which worlds that you're excited to explore. And also do let me know if you have your own YA dystopian recommendations. I'd love to hear them in the comments. And if that wasn't enough dystopia for you, then don't panic. I'm also going to be doing a video on more general dystopia. So that should be coming in the next few weeks. But if you want something right now, then do check out my feminist dystopia recommendations, where I give you 13 book recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.